Welcome back to Let's Vibe podcast. This is episode 52, navigating breakups in the rave scene. Oh boy, you guys. I am excited for today's episode because I feel like this is a topic that does not get really talked about in the rave scene. And that is breakups. You know, when you love going to raves and festivals and you meet someone, you connect with them, you vibe with them, you date them, you go to all these shows and festivals together, you make all these amazing memories with your favorite artists, and then you guys break up. And that's just like, whoa. And I really wanted to cover today's topic and just give some general tips of things as I've recently gone through a breakup. I've gone through two breakups where my partner went to raves and festivals with me. We had a lot of memories, to some sets, to some festivals, to some music. And yeah, I just wanted to open the floor to talk about this topic. I also got a couple of your guys' questions if you are currently navigating this space, and a lot of the questions were pretty similar to each other. So I think it's going to be a really cool episode just to open up and talk about these things, because I feel like it is something we don't talk about. And I wore my Millennium shirt. If you are not watching the video, I wore my Millennium shirt in honor of this, because you have to think about it. Like, for the amount of sad boys and sad girls that are out there belting these lyrics to these sad songs by like Millennium, Said the Sky, Dabbin', and you're wondering like, who hurt you? And it was most likely other people in the rave community, you know? And not everyone is meant to be together, and breakups are totally going to happen. But I really just want to normalize, like, yeah, it sucks when you have a specific interest and hobby with that partner and then you don't have that partner to do those things with anymore. And it can be really sad. And so I just wanted to like talk about it and share some of the things that have been really helpful for me in my journey after going through two breakups with partners that were in the rave scene, and how I've been able to navigate it. Without further ado, let's get into it. And I've done a How to Heal from Heartbreak episode on my other podcast, Fulfillment Era podcast, and that goes more into like personal kind of development things. But I kind of wanted to take care of tips that are more so geared towards if you are going to raves and festivals, you're a raver, all of that. You know, here are some tips for your healing journey if you are currently going through a breakup, because yeah, it is breakup season right now. Like, people are breaking up left and right. I want to say nobody is safe, but I don't want to put that energy out there. You know what I mean? And one of the key things that is really going to be beneficial if you've recently gone through a breakup, my first tip forever and always is going to be going no contact. And what that means is no texting them, no calling them, no hanging out with them. It's okay if you guys want to be friends in the future, but if you guys have just recently broken up, you cannot be in contact with that person. And I stand by this because purely on a scientific level, when you are going through a breakup, you are withdrawing from that person like a drug. Like, love is literally like a drug. And it's probably one of the most powerful drugs that is not actually a drug in this world. And you really want to set some boundaries for yourself. You know, this relationship ended for a reason, whether you initiated it or the other person initiated it. You guys just need some space together. And I know that can be really tricky, especially when rave fams come into play, which I will get to. But it's going to be really important to set some boundaries with yourself, that you guys are not going to be in contact. You can establish a certain amount of time frame. Typically, people recommend 21 days. I don't think that's enough time. I did 60 days with both of my past partners, and I told both of them, you initiated this breakup. You reach out to me whenever you're kind of ready, right? And you can initiate that next step because you were the ones that initiated the breakup. You know what I mean? And so it's really important to establish that with them and say, like, this is for both of us to give space from each other. We're not going to be in contact. If you guys need to figure out some other things like tickets, you know, having stuff at each other's places, like, get all of that sorted out and then go into no contact and make sure everything's kind of handled. And that's one of the big things is, like, if you have festival plans or shows or things like that, you're going to need to go through all of those and figure those things out. So with my most recent breakup, you know, we had a couple shows planned for June. I ended up giving him my tickets to those because I honestly was not in a place to go back to shows right away, which I'll talk about that. So, we figured that out. And then Electric Forest is my favorite festival. So he said, we're doing bungalow VIP. He was like, if you can find someone to take my spot, pay me back, great. So we ended up figuring that whole process out. And with that same thought of having overlapping friend groups and overlapping friends and Rave fams and everything, you're going to want to establish boundaries with them as well. My friends never brought my ex up unless I did. That was like a boundary that we set. I also, if any of my friends saw my ex out, I didn't want to know about it. If he was at a show or at a bar, like we set boundaries like that within our Rave fam and just friends and everything. This no contact is supposed to be kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So that also brings social media into play where you're going to want to potentially block them. And I ended up blocking my ex just because I have an active social media presence. So I didn't want him, being able to check up on me or anything like that. Like we just needed to completely create some space and have no contact, and that meant blocking him, which he understood. It was one of those things that I just needed to do for myself, and it also helped me to make sure that I wasn't going to his page and checking, because every time you go to their page, you're getting like a dopamine hit essentially, which just is reinforcing that withdrawal feeling. So it also kind of helped me remind myself like, oh yeah, if I were to go to his page, I would have to unblock him and then go do all of that. And that would kind of remind me like, okay, yeah, we're not doing that. We're protecting our peace. We're protecting our heart. We're protecting our energy. We're going to keep doing this no contact. And if that's really difficult for you because you want to keep talking to them and whatever, you're just going to want to journal. You're going to want to talk it out. You're going to want to maybe record yourself and talk to yourself as a voice memo or something like that. You're going to find other ways to, express what you need to express, but you ultimately don't need to do it with your ex. And I think that's what gets people hung up a lot of times is finding closure. And sometimes we have to be okay with not getting closure at all. And sometimes no closure is the closure. You know what I mean? I'm very grateful for both of my past breakups that they talked with me as long as I needed essentially and got my questions answered. And I just let that be that, As you go through no contact, your brain is going to come up with more questions and things, and you're going to almost convince yourself to reach out. But it's important for you to stick with that. And we'll go through some other things of how you can navigate no contact so it doesn't feel like you're just waiting by the phone or itching or wanting to contact them and everything. So we'll definitely get to that. But in this time, you're going to want to be going no contact and then really prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself. So I ended up not going to shows for the first month, and same thing with my last breakup. I went on like maybe 1 month without going to shows, going out. I really just focused on getting my mental health right, my physical health right, and like really just taking care of myself and doing what I could each and every day. And that is a task within itself when you are healing from something like this, having to get up and get ready for work and go do all of this and then come home and have these sad thoughts and feelings. You really need to take this time to focus on yourself. And sometimes that might mean not going to these shows, and it's only going to be temporary, but you just might not be in the state to do so. And you might also want to abstain from any substances or alcohol or anything like that, just because you are in such a triggered, unregulated, unsettled state right now as you're going through this, that you really want to be mindful of how you're taking care of yourself. So if you feel that like, you did have some tickets for shows that you're really looking forward to, I had a girl that just got broken up with and she went straight to an Millennium show. And I'm like, that's super healing. For me, I had tickets to 2 house shows. It was like Jamie Jones and Cream. And I'm like, those are not healing energy type shows. You know what I mean? Like that's not giving healing. It's giving like boots and cats, it's just not going to serve me. So I had given those tickets to my ex and he got to go have a good time or whatever. And that was, what he's going to do. And that's not any of my business anymore. I'm focusing on me. Yes, he probably went to these shows, whatever, had a good time. But at the end of the day, this is about me now, not about what he's doing. And, when you get into healing from a breakup, when it comes to, how a girl might heal and a guy might heal, like they're 2 very different processes, right? So that might be something to take into account. And if you are a guy that's going through a breakup and you're listening, you know, maybe rethinking going out and going to shows right away, and maybe think about spending that time with yourself and really taking care of yourself and really trying to process through this breakup might be the best bet if you're in that initial phase of this breakup, rather than going out and, you know, drinking and partying with the boys and like whatever, right? It can do more harm than good is basically what I'm getting at. And then, you know, as you're going throughout this healing journey, I want you to just remember to protect your peace throughout this process and really choose things that are going to support you and fill you up. And, you know, this could be a time for picking up some hobbies. This could be a time for, you know, some self-care, things like that. And, you know, it could be stuff that's related to raves and festivals. You could make some candy for the next festival you have coming up. Like maybe just getting excited about the things that you do have coming up. Without your ex in them. It can be really hard in that initial phase of your healing for sure. But knowing that, you know, by going no contact and trying not to think about your ex and what they're doing, it really just allows you to protect your peace and your energy and your heart. And we really just want to, you know, repair that heart and fill it back up with some love. So that way, when you do go back out into the scene, you know, you are glowing and that's radiating and everything like that. You know, one of the big things I keep getting from everyone is that I'm glowing, you know, which is great. And I definitely feel that too, but it's because I've taken the time to really focus on that healing part initially. So then the next thing I wanted to talk about, so of course being in the rave and festival scene, we have all these tickets, all these festival plans, all of these things going on that we need to sort out because we made these plans with our partner at the time. And so I explained, you know, what happened with both of mine. We kind of just went down the list line by line of like what were some of the things that we needed to figure out. There were some like tickets later in the year that my ex is going to send me and like stuff like that, but it was handled very maturely, which I'm very grateful for. But I think something that's going to be something to tune in with yourself is, okay, you know, for this upcoming Odessa show, right? Like, is this something that I really want to go to? Do I feel like I'm going to be in an energetic place to go to this, right? Is my ex going to be there? Like, are we going to decide to both be there? And then how do we navigate that, right? Where, you know, if we run into each other, what is that interaction going to look like? You know, stuff like that. So it's really important before you go no contact to just align on all of that. And you might have someone in your Ray fam that kind of communicates between both of you. We did have a friend that we unfortunately kind of put as a middleman, which, you know, hindsight was a tough job to be in. But we're super grateful for her. And, you know, she did the best she could trying to manage both of us, right? Because she was in a tough spot. She was also the one that introduced us to each other, you know, so it was kind of a tough spot to be in to begin with. But we've been able to navigate, you know, certain shows and things like that coming up and, you know, being mindful of that while we were in the no contact period. And you can really decide with some of these events, like, okay, do I really feel like I can go to this if he's there or they're there, whatever. And, you know, how can we, you know, establish that? I've talked to a lot of people that went to Electric Forest and had their ex and their Ray fam. And I honestly was like, yeah, I don't know if I could have done that, you know, with my ex being there, because I want to go off and like do my own thing. So if that was you, like, mad props to you on that for navigating that. Because that's a tough place to be in. But yeah, you really want to just figure out what's going on with those plans. You know, with my ex, I had booked like our flight for Forest and all of that. So I had to coordinate and figure out all of that stuff and get him money back and like whatever. And that's kind of the tricky thing. And I was thinking about it too with like a lot of like, you know, if you don't go to raves and festivals, you know, you break up and you kind of just go about your life unless they had travel plans and stuff. Like, this is just so unique to the rave community that you have to figure these things out, I feel like. So I hope that, you know, as you guys are navigating that, you guys can have a healthy and mature conversation and trying to figure out who's taking what tickets, and like, don't take things so personally, and just know like, you, at the end of the day, you can do what's best for you and best for each other, right? And if your ex is an asshole, then take the tickets, don't give it back to them. I've had instances of that where like, this is mine, I'm going to this, blah, 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 like feel free to do that if your ex was like a terrible person, and you don't want to give them the ticket, or, you're going to take the ticket from them and give it to a friend for free, like you can absolutely do whatever you want. But I would just hope that maybe you guys can handle things in a more amicable and mature way. But I get it if like it's a messy breakup or whatever, that you might not get that. And I totally feel you if that is your specific case. A lot of questions, which we'll get into, a lot of them were around what to do when you're in the same rave fam. And this is what I'm currently navigating right now. And, it's something that I am still kind of feeling out. I don't have much experience with this, but I know it's pretty difficult, especially given everyone's personal one-on-one interpersonal relationships with like each person in the rave fam. It's definitely a tough spot to be in because, they're trying to sort out, they have their love and care for these two people. Now, what does this relationship now look like? And it can be a little bit tricky. And I don't think I really have the best advice other than, I would do your best to not try to have your friends pick sides if it was a relationship that truly just needed to end for the better, right? Now, if there was something where, one of the people was more harmful to the other in like a very negative way or whatever, then people can choose to form their own opinions. But I think at the end of the day, if you are the one that got broken up with, or you're the ex or whatever, have some grace and compassion for your friends in the Rave fam for also trying to navigate this space, because, they're also going through this too with you. They're seeing both of you guys being hurt by the situation, and they're also just trying to navigate this as best as you guys can. And it's going to be tough. The first show that you guys all go to together again, the first festival you guys all go to together again, like it's going to be a little bit tricky to navigate. I would hope maybe in your rave fam, you do have like a specific, maybe one person that you can really lean on, that, you can talk with or things like that. I would maybe try to vent more to people outside of the rave fam, just to like kind of keep it out of the rave fam in that way. It can be beneficial to keep that stuff outside of the rave fam, just to, keep everything on a level playing field, especially if your ex is not talking badly about you to other people in the rave fam. It just puts people in an uncomfortable position, I guess, is what I'm getting at. But again, this is something that I have never had to deal with. Like even with my past relationship, he wasn't really friends with the people in my rave fam. I kind of brought him in, but he didn't really stay because he broke up with me, so he exited out. I don't even know if he goes to raves and festivals really anymore since we broke up, to be honest. But with my most recent ex, yeah, he definitely still goes to concourse and is going to festivals and stuff like that. So again, this is kind of like an in progress thing that we're working through. And then the final thing that I really want to talk about that I think is so important when you are healing from a breakup in the rave community, especially, is that I did a TikTok and an Instagram about this. And what I find to be really the most important thing is that you need to make new memories, whether it's with a specific festival, a specific artist, a specific venue, whatever it may be. You need to make new memories and associate them to that. So for example, if like one of your favorite artists together was Seven Lions, right? Like there was an artist with my ex previously, not the most recent ex, but the one before that. Like there were certain artists that like I couldn't listen to for a while, and you're kind of like restraining yourself from that. And I think it's important to find ways to make new memories of that artist or that venue or that festival. And it's going to be really tough and it's going to be really uncomfortable, but you have to kind of create like new pathways in your brain, essentially. Like that's what it's doing, is that like you're making new memories and attaching meaning to them that is something different. For example, Lane 8 is one of my all-time favorite artists. Like he's up there. Like I love him so, so much. And at Electric Forest, he played one of my favorite songs, No Captain, that I have a tattoo about. I talked about this on last week's episode. And my friend Danita was like, we're making new memories. Like, we're making new memories, you know? And Lane 8, you know, he's an artist that's been with me even before both of my relationships. So it's one of those artists where, like, I don't really attach too much to those relationships, but I do attach certain songs maybe, but No Captain is like my boss bitch energy type song. So that's a little bit different, but you need to go back and make new memories. Same thing with Electric Forest. I mentioned in last week's episode, I had been in a relationship for all of my Electric Forest, whether it was with my most recent ex or the ex before that. And so it was a really cool opportunity to have an Electric Forest that was specifically like for myself. And like I got to be single and free and just like follow my schedule, follow my vibes. And like I didn't have to worry about anyone else other than myself. So I really want you to just give yourself the opportunity to make new memories. If you guys have a venue that you guys would go to all the time, go to it. You know, if you see them there, make sure you're dressed hot. Look hot. If you need to have a drink in your hand just to get the like edge off, do it. You know what I mean? I just need some caffeine in me, and that kind of blocks a little bit of some emotions. If I were to run into my ex at a venue, like I would be able to handle it. Because I don't drink, you know, so that's been really interesting that I've been navigating this space not drinking while healing from a breakup. And yeah, I just think it's important. And so if you're going to cry because of those songs that you're listening to, and bringing back up all those old memories, just cry it out. You know, if you have a Millennium songs that you have memories attached to, like put them on and just cry it out. Get all of those emotions out. You got to feel it to heal it. A lot of people really like that saying I said in that video that I posted in my TikTok, but it's so, so true. And you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, because if you don't, you're kind of like bracing yourself almost and just like resisting it, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to go back to that venue because he might be there. Oh, I'm not going to go back to that festival because there's so many memories. Like you're almost building up more over it that it's going to feel even harder to do later down the road. So you might as well just rip the Band-Aid off and free yourself from these limitations, because at the end of the day, there's an abundance of just love out there and connection and events and experiences and everything to be had, that it would be such a shame to let your ex or your past relationship keep you from experiencing those things. You know, you hold yourself back from going to a certain festival because your ex might go, going back to a show because your ex might be there, listening to your favorite music because it brings up these memories. Like you're just giving more power to your ex, which I think not a lot of people realize. You know, you're thinking so much about what your ex might be doing or thinking or whatever, and you're holding on to these things in the past that it's keeping you from progressing and moving forward. You know, if you need to like write a letter and burn it while you're listening to your guys' song, that's therapeutic and that's making a new memory. If you need to go to one of those like smash places and like blast out one of those songs, that's a new memory, you know? So you really need to make new memories and get excited about this new life that you're creating for yourself. So this brings me to kind of the final tip before we get into questions from the community. Book that festival trip, book that flight, buy that ticket. Who cares? One of the sayings I always said to myself is like, it's not that serious. It's really not that serious. You know, yes, I got broken up with. Cool. Oh, well, on to the next. You know what I mean? But I think it's so important to just start living your life again and get excited about the life you're creating for yourself, these new experiences you're going to get to have, the people that you're surrounded by. That was a little mindset hack for me for Electric Forest, is instead of focusing on who wasn't there, focusing on who was there and focusing on the people that were around me and loving me and supporting me. You know, it was sad to not have my ex there, right? But I just reminded myself of all of the love that I was surrounded by my friends and also just my followers and community and everything. And it just made it, you know, it made it a lot more special for me. So I really want you to just start focusing on the abundance of love and opportunity and excitement and just magical things that can happen in your life when you start opening yourself up to that, if that makes sense. And I also had a funny thought about this of there is 500,000 people that go to EDC Las Vegas. I don't know. I'm bad at that actual math. 500,000 across the whole weekend. There's so many people that go to Tomorrowland. There are so many ravers and festival goers, and if you are hung up on that one Chad or Brad or whatever that was not treating you in the way that you deserve, there are so many people that you could potentially meet and cross paths with, but you are still hung up on that person. Mic drop. There are so many potential connections that can happen, especially at raves and festivals and shows that we go to. I've met both of my past partners at shows. It just happened, So I want you to open yourself up to the idea that it is possible for you to find love again. And it is possible because there's an abundance of raves and festivals, which means there's an abundance of ravers and festival goers, which means that there's an abundance of potential options for you. And of course, this is all going to come with time. And this is really a time for you to focus on yourself and really align with who does that next partner look like for you? Who is your soulmate ideal connection? And you never know, you may just naturally attract that. When you have this open and glowing energy, you are going to attract that. So it's important to really work on yourself first. And you won't even need to put yourself out there. You won't even need the dating apps or anything like that. It will just naturally happen and come to you. And I hate to say when you least expect it, but it does sometimes happen when you least expect it. So let's get into some of these questions. The first one being how to let go of attachments. This one, I feel like really started happening for me when I started aligning with who I am and myself and what I value and what I want and what I bring to the table. I feel like what would be my standards. I think you can let go of attachments when you become really solid with you and yourself and have a really deep understanding about yourself, because that allows you to know when it's time to let go of something and when it's time to not be attached to something. I even noticed this with dating. I'm not actively dating. I'm not really interested, but I'm in this relaxed kind of feminine energy about it, that if someone wants to come to me and buy me a drink, ask me out on a date, whatever, I'm very relaxed about it, because at the end of the day, I know I have myself and I know what I bring to the table, and I don't need to go out there and chase, if that makes sense. I don't need to go after and pursue someone. I'm just fully trusting that I can, of course, put myself out there, put myself in spaces where I could be asked these things, but I've let go of the attachment of needing someone, because I'm really solid with myself and I am so excited about the life that I'm creating, that the person that I would desire to be in my life just adds to that and doesn't take away from it. And I don't necessarily need them. I want them, but I don't need them. And I think that helps me, because I know that I have myself at the end of the day, and I have the amazing life that I've created, that even if this life were to go away too, I'm not attached to it because I know what rock bottom feels like. I've been in it. And life has been very interesting the past year for me, that I've been in a place where it feels like it's all going away. And that just has allowed me to become really unattached in the fact that this could all go away. And I know at the end of the day, I have myself. So I hope that makes sense. And that there's another question that kind of also relates to that. So there'll be another kind of reframe with that. The next question is, it's this question. Hi, Aid. How can I get myself to stop thinking about my ex, what he's up to, what festivals or events he's at, etc.? He's always on my mind when I'm at a festival we used to attend together, or when I'm listening to the music we used to listen to together. It can be difficult and overwhelming trying to move past it all. So first off, I just want to say thank you. And I also want to send you so much love and compassion for even just having this awareness. And the first thing that came to mind for me is that I just want to normalize that it is okay to still think about your ex. This person was a part of your life for a reason, and it's going to be uncomfortable, right? Especially if you put this person, at the forefront of your life. You did a lot of things for them. You guys did a lot of things together, right? It's going to take time to not think about them. But I don't want you to shame yourself for it, especially like if you're like, oh, it was X amount of time, I should not be thinking about him anymore. There's a limit where I think, okay, I've seen TikTok comments of like, it's been 15 years and I'm not over them still. And I'm like, that's a lot of time. But if you are still within this window, depending on how long you were with this person, like your brain has naturally made it a habit to be thinking about them. And when you're telling yourself like, no, I shouldn't be thinking about them. No, I can't think about them. You're like restraining yourself more. And it's like when someone tells you to not press the red button, all you're thinking about is like, I want to press the red button. Like I want to do that. That is just human behavior and human nature. So when it comes to thinking about your ex, I think I would try to like take an outside perspective, like step outside of yourself as the observer of your thoughts and recognize, okay, I'm thinking about my ex. Why am I thinking about him? Oh, because, we're at a festival. I miss like looking back and seeing him there. I miss the comfort. Okay, I just miss the comfort, and that's okay. And sometimes when you just like have that awareness and you accept the thought and you recognize it and you normalize it, it kind of just allows the thought to pass through. And that's what thoughts are. They should just be these things that pass through you. And most of the time, our thoughts are not truths either. Most of the times, these thoughts just need to get out. Now, if you have a thought about your ex and you get the urge to want to contact them, I would recommend maybe typing in a notes. So like if you're at a festival, right, and you have a thought about your ex and you wish you could contact them, like maybe you type in your notes what you would say and you don't send it to them. Maybe you write them a letter when you get back from the festival or something like that. I would even, if you're having really overwhelming thoughts while you're in the middle of a crowd, maybe go to the porta potty and just get out all of the thoughts so it just stops racing in your head, because I know what it can feel like when you have racing thoughts and you're not present in the moment, whether it's at a show or a festival. This actually happened to me recently. I got pretty triggered from like a song that played at a show, and I went to the bathroom and I just like started writing things out just to like get it out of my head. And then I did some grounding breaths and that really helped me. And even with music, I look at this from an appreciation standpoint of a song, maybe that my ex and I had memories to. If I were to listen to it, I'm like, oh, that was a nice memory, and that memory served its purpose. I'm so grateful for that. And, I am grateful for my ex. So I do say something along those lines. Like, I'm really grateful for him and that moment that we got to experience. And, that was a beautiful moment. And then I also flip it to, which means I will get to have more beautiful moments, if that makes sense. I think the main thing here is to normalize the thoughts that you're having. Try to reframe them and not shame yourself for them. And I think I would recommend continuing to journal, continuing to talk things out, continuing to write things out to get these thoughts out. Because sometimes when we're like just circling more and more because we're trying not to think about them, these thoughts just keep staying up here. So whatever you can do to like take these things out of here and onto somewhere else, it kind of releases them into the ether, I would do that. And then the next thing is like, okay, I'm thinking about my ex. What could I do for myself in this moment? So if you're at a festival, right? Like I said, maybe excusing yourself and like grounding yourself. Or if you're like, you know what, I'm feeling this way, I'm going to go get myself a corn dog. I don't know why a corn dog came to mind, but maybe getting yourself a treat, or asking your friend if you want to go take a lap, or if you want to go sit down, or like figure out, okay, I'm thinking about my ex. This is normal. What can I do for myself instead? And start to like flip the script of like putting that time and energy and focus from him back onto you. And I had that same thought of like, okay, my ex is at the concourse tonight. Good for him. Great. I'm doing this with myself tonight. Like I tried to combat that of like calling my focus back to myself of like, he can go do whatever he wants. That's none of my business anymore. This is what I'm currently doing in my life. This is who I'm going to go hang out with. This is what I'm going to be doing this weekend. So almost like asking yourself like, okay, well, if he's going and doing all those things, what am I doing for myself now? What can I do for myself? I ended up booking, like, I went to Denver recently. That was the weekend that would have been like our anniversary weekend. So like I did that for myself. His birthday weekend is Labor Day weekend. So I booked a trip to Electric Zoo. I decided I didn't want to be in town for that. So I decided to book a trip to Electric Zoo. So find ways to, again, get excited about your life and make plans for yourself. So that way, when you do have these thoughts, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, like I'm having these thoughts. It's normal for me. But here's what I'm also cultivating in my life that it really excites me. And this is what I'm doing for myself to pour into myself and become the best version of myself, you know? So I just said myself a lot, but I really want to emphasize that. Like, start making it all about you, but just know that the thoughts you're having and the experience you're having is totally normal. The next questions were all about Rave fams. How to navigate a breakup while having the same Rave fan. How to handle friend breakups in the Rave scene and how to find a new Rave fam. Advice for if you're in the same Rave fam but break up. What do you recommend for newly single ravers that no longer have a rave family? If they've already tried going to rave solo but would prefer friends, how can they make friends? So yeah, I didn't really touch on that part, right? If you decide that you no longer want to be a part of your rave fam, here's what you can do. But yeah, with navigating breakups while still in the same rave fam, I think my advice still stands to kind of like keep it out of the rave fam just purely for like everyone's sake. Unless, of course, there was like toxic abusive behavior, right? That's just not justified. But I would try to keep things amicable within the rave fam, maybe vent to people outside of the rave fam if you can. And maybe have someone that you can lean on specifically in the rave fam as you navigate this space. And then again, just normalize that it's going to be weird. Like your first show, festival, all together, whatever. It's going to be weird. You might also decide if you want to leave the group chats temporarily just for like your no contact period or whatever. And just know that like maybe you'll get the details from other people. And just know that like if people decide to leave your life based off of this breakup within the rave fam or like a divide happens or whatever, like it was probably all meant to happen. And if, you know, your rave fam can't be mature about the situation, like say you guys have been mature about the situation, but like your rave fam wasn't, and like you kind of get like exiled out of the group, you know, maybe that was just meant to happen. And maybe those are not the people that you want in your life, you know? If you guys have a rave fam where like breakups have happened and you guys have all moved along because we're all adults and we can all navigate this, then that's the way to be. And I hope that that's true for some of you guys, but I do get that there can be some pettiness or animosity or whatever. And just know that it can really suck to feel like you're losing not only your partner, but also the rave fam too. It can be a really like alienating feeling, but I also hold the same truth that, you know, the people that are meant to be in your life are meant to be in your life. And if certain things like that cause people to leave your life, then it was meant to happen. And it just means that there's room for more people to come into your life that are going to support you and love you in the ways that you need. And it might just take time to find those people. And so finding new rave friends or rave fams, like for me, I always just recommend social media or going out to shows in your local area. And finding ways to connect with people, you know, even if like, I just thought about this, like if they have vendors or things like that, like you can always try to connect with like, you know, some of the vendors there, maybe they have groups they know about. You could always find like, if you shuffle, you can find a shuffle community or a flow community. You know, it just takes some digging to do, whether you go on Facebook and look up Facebook groups. Like Austin, we have an ATX Rave Babes group that I know a lot of people have connected with people over. Honestly, me starting Vibe with Aid was like my own way of like making friends, which is really great. So maybe you start showing up online more authentically and putting yourself out there and meeting people that way. I think social media is just a great way of doing it. There's also an app called Radiate, which is also a great way of meeting people. I hold the truth that it's so possible to make friends in the rave community because we're all vibing together. This is the community we've created. It's just about putting yourself out there and putting in the work to make it happen. And sometimes you can find like solo raver groups for specific festivals and stuff like that, where you can go and meet other solo ravers, which I think is great. I think it's just all about like doing the research and finding it and then putting yourself out there. I actually met one of my best friends, Brenda, when I first moved to Austin through Radiate. I invited her over for like a little candy making thing for Freaky Deaky. This was in 2017 and we're best friends and we're still best friends. She's one of like the best people in my life. So I think just utilizing the tools we have available to us with social media, with certain apps and things like that. I hope that can be really helpful for you to find some new people, because yeah, if people leave your life, it just means that there's room for more people to come in that are going to be more aligned with you. And again, if you're focusing so much on the past or how things used to be or these people, you're not allowing the opportunity for more to come in for you. The final question we have here is, how do you move forward in pursuing a new relationship after you've healed from a breakup? So this is interesting that I don't think I really have experience to talk about, because just for context, I talked about this, I think, in my breakup episode on my other podcast, but I guess to give you guys a little bit of a landscape of my love life journey, I was in a 5-year relationship, high school to college, high school sweethearts, that whole deal. We broke up in college, the beginning of my sophomore year. And then I was single for about 4 years, I want to say. And this was just me finishing college, having some fun, whatever. Like I healed from that breakup in a very wrong way, I feel like, because I didn't know any better. And, I know what I know now about myself and all those things. But that was more so like figuring out, navigating college, what I want to do with my life, then coming out of college, moving to Austin. And then I met my ex, Ryan. And we dated for 1.5 years. And I honestly, when I think about how that relationship started, it was one of those things where we met at a show, he shuffled, I shuffled, and we connected, whatever. Then we went on a date. I didn't really feel like I vetted myself if I was really ready for a relationship. I think I was just in that puppy love phase. And I was just he seems cool. He checks off all these boxes, blah, blah, blah. And then, we got into a relationship and all of that kind of happened. I would say we started talking in February, dated by May. So 3 months maybe before we became official. And so this was one of those relationships that I just kind of dove into, and I didn't really feel if I was ready for it. I just was kind of oh, he's cute, whatever. Yeah, I'm down, wholesome little aid. And then we broke up 2020. And then a couple months after that breakup, I met Chase at a show. And I was kind of denying that connection a little bit, because I was just oh no, it feels too soon. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. And, I went to Cross, then I came back, then we went on our first date, then the pandemic happened. So that all happened very crazily. And he actually lived down the street from me. So we were dating and talking, for a little bit before we started officially dating. I think we were talking maybe 6 months, I want to say. Needless to say, it's been quite the journey of my love life. And even right now, I'm kind of in this place of navigating this. And I think it's really important to check yourself of okay, where do I feel like I'm at? Am I ready to call in a relationship? What do I want that relationship to look like? What do I want my partner to be like? How do I want my partner to support me? How do I want, my partner and I to support each other? I think it's important to really define and get very crystal clear on what you are looking for, what you want, what are your non-negotiables, what are, your negotiables on some things, and then start putting yourself out there and seeing as you're going on dates, do you still have, the ex in the back of your mind, or do you still feel there are some things that you need to focus on in your life. Start feeling these things out as you get to know people. And I think you'll have kind of a telltale indicator whether you're ready for this or not. And I don't know if that's the best answer, but that's kind of what's coming up for me. And there was something else I wanted to get to. Oh, another thing though that I want you to be aware of is that you don't need to be fully healed in order to get into a relationship. You don't need to be the absolute best version of yourself, your highest self, gold standard type high value woman. I don't know. You don't need to be the best of the best just yet, because ideally your healing journey never stops, honestly. Like there's always going to be new layers and new levels to you that are going to continuously need to be unlocked and healed, that like you're never going to be fully healed from something or like from yourself or whatever, that like you shouldn't cut yourself off from love is what I'm basically getting at. Like you don't need to be perfect essentially, or you don't need to be perfectly healed in order to be with someone, but you do need to check yourself if you are ready to like put in the work of a relationship and to grow together and to work through, you know, some of these things. Because I do agree that like if you're trying to work on like codependency or, you know, your attachment style or how like maybe trauma or conditioning comes up in relationships, you can't really do that when you're sitting at home doing your healing journey at home. You do that when you are actively in a relationship and you work on those things together. So it's really deciding if you are ready for that, and also checking with yourself, okay, do I actually want a relationship or am I bored? Do I want a relationship or am I just looking for comfort? Do I want a relationship or am I just looking for validation? Do I want a relationship or am I just looking for love? And I bring that up as kind of the last point because you really want to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons. And sometimes some of those things that I'm talking about, we just need to give to ourselves. We need to give ourselves the comfort, the validation, the love before other people do. Because if we can't give that to ourselves, we're going to constantly be searching for that in people, and we're never going to be fully satisfied because, you know, your partner should be your other whole. Like it should be two wholes. That sounds so bad. But what I'm basically getting at is like you're not two halves coming together and making a whole. You guys need to be whole on your own, and you need to have these lives that you're building on your own. That way it just adds to it, and it's like an overflowing cup of things. Your partner should not be filling your cup to make you whole, is basically what I'm getting at. I feel like The Office, that's what she said, could have come up a lot there. That's what I was just thinking in my head was The Office. That's what she said. But you guys get what I mean. So that is the final question we have. I really loved doing this episode. It's really cool to kind of bring in the dynamics of healing and personal development and things like that into the rave scene. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to give it a rating, give us a review. This has been so awesome for me to get back into this podcast, and I hope you guys have been enjoying having it weekly and all of those things. But if you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to share it with a friend, all the things. Make sure you're following me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those things as well. I hope you guys have an amazing and very vibey week. I will see you guys in the next one. Stay vibey. Bye.